look what I found, David.
What'd you find? That looks like a.
What is that?
Oh, okay, you'll never.
It's a tweed tribble.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, okay.
Cthulhu
Hang on, I've
script.
got multiple stuff.
Oh,
going
wait till
here.
you see what it looks like after I get a few chia pet seeds in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, good morning. Welcome to B Cube Sunday morning. It is a great Sunday. It's a Labor Day weekend. There was some bad news. They found Trump.
Damn it.
And we are here last Sunday of the month with David and Jim. And you guys do remember each other. It's been a while since I've actually had you together. I thought you may have forgotten each other.
I'm looking. I'm looking him up on Wikipedia. I think I remember him. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
David hadn't stayed in my guest room yet this year, so yeah.
Well, how you guys been doing? I finally got to meet Charlie, so I'm happy.
Well, Charlie wasn't that happy about it, but other than no, Charlie liked you.
Well, Charlie seems to like most things.
Charlie likes most people. He's not too good around small children. I'm not sure what that's about, but other than that, he's pretty good.
Well, he won't hold still.
Yeah.
Are you still there, Jim? Your voice cut out.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, good.
I didn't want to talk over David. I'm doing good myself. This is the first time I've been here in 3 months because I've been traveling most of the summer. My wife and I were in various places in North America taking pictures, and like we usually do in the summer. And so we're out shooting birds in Glacier National Park and Mesa Verde and Arizona and Utah and places like that. We were in a remote desert in far Utah and a place on the border there with Colorado, a place called Dinosaur, Colorado, which if you've never been there, you're not missing a hell of a lot. But we had a lot of fun this year.
You're going to get mail for that, you know.
Not from Dinosaur. I'm not. I don't think they have the internet there yet. But no, it's a fascinating place. Actually, there's a very a national park there that's not visited very much. As such things go, it's the Dinosaur National Monument. It spans the border between Colorado and Utah. It's kind of a very remote sort of place. The Colorado side in Dinosaur, Colorado doesn't have any dinosaurs. That's the first thing they tell you. Welcome to Dinosaur. We don't have any dinosaurs. They're on the other side, on the Utah side, which is 100 miles around through the mountains. And then you get around to the other side. But it's a beautiful place. If you're a bird photographer, a wildlife photographer, it's a fantastic place. It was a lot of fun, and it was good to get away from the world for a bit and get out on the road and drive around America and try to remember some of the reasons that that we're willing to fight for this country and push back against the crap that's happening in the world right now. So
a lot of good rocks down there too.
Yeah. My wife's a rock hound, so in fact, one birthday I bought her a rock hammer, which she still considers her best gift. So that's the kind of person she is. Probably why we've been married all these years.
Well, I wanted to make a point here before we got too deep into this because it's an exciting point that just makes me happy. Many years ago, I started doing this editing stuff and found out I enjoyed it. And so this year, I have an honor. I get to be a co-guest of honor with David Gerrold at RadCon. He's the writer guest of honor. There's banners waving in the end. And I'm the editor guest of honor. And right now, there is an active fundraiser to make Jim show up.
What would I be? What would I would be like? What, the guy that follows the editor and the writer around? And
You're the wingman.
Curmudgeon
I
guest
can
of
do that.
honor. I have
can do
no
that.
idea.
Yeah.
I know. I don't interfere with guest of honor ranking.
It'd be the curmudgeon guest of honor. I mean, David usually does that, but if he's going to be the writer, he can't have both.
Well, if you were the curmudgeon guest of honor, David would probably throw a shit fit. That's his role. Okay. And
yeah, that sounds good. I mean, if this is, like I said, this is the first time I was at MizCon a month ago in Missoula. I was one of the panelists at MizCon here in Missoula, Montana, about a month ago, or I guess it's been a little bit longer than that. I kind of lost track. This has been kind of a busy summer for me. In addition to traveling, my mother passed away, and so I've been back and forth to Michigan, taking care of the estate and doing different things. And so I kind of lose track of time here. But and with the Trump bullshit every day online, it's one day kind of runs into another. And but yeah, RadCon sounds like a lot of fun, and if we can arrange it, I would be happy to be there.
Well,
sure.
Yay! Sounds good.
There is so much fun stuff to see up here. We got the Columbia River. We got the Snake River.
Yeah.
We even have a stream called the Yakima River. But we got birds, pelicans, herons. You can go down the river and watch the otters swim. You can. We got bicycle trails that you can get up and take a.
Come on.
Nice 23. It's really one of the most nicest cities in Washington, and you can actually find exits at our convention place.
I don't know that. I don't know advertising the exits is the best advertising for your convention, but okay.
Well,
no, there have been some conventions where the exit was probably the most attractive part of it.
I said I knew David was going to chime in on that one, because we've definitely been at some conventions where we were looking for.
WorldCon was a fine convention. If you
WorldCon was good.
It was great. I just never could find an exit.
I didn't. Obviously, I didn't make WorldCon this year. I had some other things going on, and so I had to, which is kind of a bummer, because I love Seattle, and I wish. And I was out there earlier this year for another convention, a small convention, and so I was hoping to maybe get back to Seattle when the weather was a little bit better, but it just didn't work out this year. Like I said, I had a lot going on this summer, and so I've kind of had to step back a little bit from things and take care of that. But it's all clearing up now. We're doing pretty good. It's getting a little cooler here, so. Life's getting a little better, so
Yeah.
So we had a bit of a trip. Malcolm and I left July 28th, and we just got home last night back here. I think this is Vermont. We had to first we went to Colorado Springs to pick up a projector for the home theater that we've been building for 2 years, and then we went to Creation Con. No, we went to LA. So I could have a meeting with the Crofts about a possible TV gig, which the people at Netflix and Legendary are still, I don't know what they're doing. And then we went to Creation Con in Vegas. Now that part of the trip, Glenn Howman drove. And then because Malcolm's son was getting married, he flew out the day after and joined me at the Creation Con in Vegas. Then we went to LA. I forget what we did in LA. I don't even remember. And then from Creation Con, we went up to Seattle for WorldCon. And then after WorldCon, we went to BubanaCon, stopping along the way to pick up a couple of computers that had been rebuilt for me. And then after BubanaCon, we went back to LA and emptied the storage locker. And then we went to Palm Springs, Desert Hot Springs, and picked up a gigantic but goofy, very friendly pit bull that Sean was rescuing from someone who couldn't keep the dog anymore. So then we drove back to Vermont with Charlie in the back and the pit bull on his seat in the passenger seat. And that was an adventure. So whatever.
There is a warning that should go with that. If David ever asks you if you want to ride along when he goes to the grocery store, don't.
I've been to the grocery store with David. I know how this goes. Actually, it's a lot of fun. David and I always have a lot of fun when he's down here. So.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I'm finally getting some breakfast in me, and then after this, we have a picnic this afternoon on the other side of the lake. So,
well, that is cool. Now, are you eating bacon?
Yes, I'm eating bacon.
Well, you have a very good microphone. So yeah.
The microphone's way up there. Where did Charlie go?
See, I go out for breakfast every Thursday. Vicky goes with me, and she has her own order of bacon. The cook knows how to cook it just for her.
Listen,
I like my bacon crispy.
Listen, my dog's sleeping over here in front of the desk. And you need to stop talking about feeding your dog's bacon, all right? Because this dog is on a diet. She's getting, I don't know, some kind of healthy treat my wife's giving her. She's not happy about it. So you guys need to stop talking about feeding dogs bacon, all right? It's just
okay.
Because her ears are standing right up here. That's all I need, all right? And I've got my son and daughter-in-law are in Alaska at the moment, so I've got their husky in my house, and the two dogs don't get along. So I don't need the dog angry about bacon, all right?
Hey,
and Charlie doesn't get angry about bacon. He just wants his share.
The other day.
What's that?
I heard some good news on TV the other day.
Yeah?
He's still alive. There isn't any good news, but go ahead.
No, I know. They found him. But J.D. Vance wants us to know that he's tan, rested, and ready.
Right. So I said, you can tell. You can tell. This is, as I said online, those of you that follow me online saw me say this the other day. It's this reminds me of back in the 70s when we were going through Soviet party chairmen in the USSR about once a month, and there for a while there was like a they'd hold some gray, deathly, death looking, corpse looking guy up, and Yuri Andropov or Chernenko or somebody, and introduce him as the new party chairman, and then you'd hear about how robust his health was, and there'd be like guys like making him golf, and and then a month later he'd be dead. They'd have some kind of funeral, and then there'd be another guy, and no matter how dead he was always in the best of health. Strong like tractor, smart like bear, that sort of thing. And this is exactly what we're seeing here. And I can tell you that Trump's health is in decline, not just from looking at him, but from the fact that we haven't heard shit from J.D. Vance in 7 months. This guy has been on perpetual vacation for 7 damn months, and suddenly he's out in front of this last 30 days, man. There's J.D. Vance is on TV every day. Now, there's no way in hell that they're trotting his ass out in front of the cameras if they're not getting him ready for when when the party chairman takes a header on the 9th hole or whatever the hell.
Well, I have a friend who has some medical experience. He doesn't think Trump will make it to the end of the year. So.
Well, it's like I said, I've done nothing for the last 6 years but deal with dying elderly people, and if you're a dying elderly person, I'm sorry for saying that, but when it comes to all of us eventually, and bruising on the hands and the bloating ankles, and all of this stuff is signs of age. I would have a hell of a lot more respect for these people, and that not a lot if they at least tell the goddamn truth. But it's like everything else with these people. They're tales of health and manhood and manliness and robust. All this stuff's bullshit. I'm literally listening to. I'm in a grocery store the other day, and David knows where I live, which is the reddest part of the deep south taint of America is where I live, and I'm in a grocery store the other day, and prices are up 60% for a lot of items, especially things like meat. And I'm in line behind people that are talking about, it's so amazing how Trump has brought the prices down. And I'm like, you're literally paying more. You're paying. You're literally looking at it. And talking about how Trump he's brought these prices down. It's so much better than it was under Joe Biden. And they're paying 60% goddamn groceries. And it's like everything else. So when he talks about, I saw this morning how many trillions he's he's got from tariffs and put into the coffer, and it works out to thousands of dollars per American that we're paying in tariffs on our end of it. And I know this is a fact because, as you guys know, I make things like pens, and I haven't done it for 6 months since the tariffs went into place, because most of the products or raw materials that I buy come from overseas, and the tariffs on these items are significant. I'd have to charge $100 for ink pens. And what kind of lunatic would pay that for ink pens, even for me, right? I mean, I'd like to thank all of you, million people.
Well, you know what you should do is call it the official Trump pen, and then you can sell it to Trump supporters and say that you've lowered the price for them and charge $150.
Hey, you know what? You know what, man? See, now that's why you're a Hugo-winning award-winning writer right there. That's a great idea. I think that's exactly what I'll do. But it's it's astounding to me, and I can't. It screws all of us. People like me that are small business owners that make products and sell them. I sell all over the world, and I can't. I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to limit my sales to the continental United States or inside the United States, because the excise tariffs and the reciprocal taxes and tariffs that have been imposed, and the increased fees for shipping overseas, if I can even still ship overseas from the U.S. Postal Service, are astronomical. They're ridiculous. It's a non-starter.
I think within a week. Within a week or two, there's the shipping tariffs are going to have to be dropped, because Wall Street is going to say enough already. So,
yeah, it's insane, and it's again, we live in a society where half the population, a third of the population, are literally telling themselves they're paying less when they're demonstratively.
It's 1984, where Big Brother has dramatically reduced the chocolate ration from 4 grams to 3 grams. Dramatically increased the chocolate ration from 4 grams to 3 grams.
Right. That's exactly it. And it's nuts. I mean, I'm literally standing behind these guys in line, and they're talking about how much it's so much better now than it was. And
I mean, I was just amazed that the Federal Court of Appeals actually has judges on it that read the Constitution. The part about the Article 1, Section 8 about where the funding for terror, or where the tariff authority lies, and 4 of them still didn't get it.
Yeah, but here's your problem. Here's the problem. These guys come out. The Court of Appeals says, "Hey, all right, we believe that X amount, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90% of the tariffs imposed by the President of the United States are illegal, that they're unconstitutional, they can't be done. However, we're going to let him keep doing it." What's it to his pet Supreme Court? Because they know that the Rogers Court is going to overturn that and let him get away with whatever the hell he wants to. There's no accountability.
How confident are you there?
What's that?
How confident are you on that?
That's a question. Like I said,
I think Roberts is concerned with his legacy.
Right.
I think he's concerned with his legacy, and that if he recognizes, and he's not stupid, if he recognizes that if Trump goes down and the country reacts aggressively, he doesn't want to be tarred and feathered with that same brush. I don't think
hang from the nearest lamppost. But
yeah, I do. If I can change the subject slightly, I posted a thing on Facebook where, and I forget who wrote it, but somebody very knowledgeable apparently, about soft secession of the blue states, because Congress isn't doing their job and the Supreme Court isn't doing their job. That the blue state governors are having conference calls every morning about what they can do to resist federal encroachment, even to the point of not paying their share of federal taxes, which would be trillions. So, or half a $1 trillion a year. Whatever it is it, or what, a day? I don't know. But anyway, they're talking soft secession, and some of them don't like the term secession, but effectively the blue states are planning to not publicly declare their independence, but essentially doing everything they can to mitigate or eliminate the power of the federal government within the blue state borders. That could be the thing that brings him down, is the fact that the red states suddenly don't, the federal government no longer has the money to support the red states, at which point the red state governors are going to start to panic. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting article, an interesting read.
Well, and that's the thing, though. I mean, you put your finger right on it here. And Bob's question, to circle back to Bob's question, what do you think is going to happen? In a rational society, those things should be predictable. In a society that depends for its economic base on things like the stock market, those things are only stable in a predictable society. And for us, where the hell did Bob go? But for us, that's the biggest problem with Trump, is he's not predictable. And there's a shitload of people on the right that look at it and they go, well, see, that's what we like about him. What you get is chaos. You can't have a world leader or a global leader of one of the largest economies in the world. If we're still the largest economy or near the top somewhere, you can't have the person that's in charge of that changing rudder every 15 minutes. And when things become unstable, you should be able to predict what the president and what Congress and what the courts are going to do within broad parameters down the road. You should be able to look at that for the basis of the stock market, for the basis of the economy, for the basis of business, for law, for stability of society, all of those things. And you can't do that. And the catch-all phrase for this now, especially from the right, is the deep state. Well, it's not the deep state. It's the inertia of society. It's stability. It's those things that remain stable no matter who the leader is. And those are the things that allow us to predict the stock market, to predict future law.
It provides us with a stable society, is what it basically, yeah.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Without that stability, not only do you see economic impact, but you also see impact militarily, where you can't decide, you can't build long-term plans and strategies, because all of those things suddenly depend on whether or not we're going to fire all the generals. You can't, and those things are, you can't, when you're doing things like shipbuilding, for example, which is a huge economic input in certain states.
All the coastal states have harbors where.
Well, sure, but some of the components for those things are built
inland. They're built inland and shipped. Yeah, I mean,
right.
And then you not only have the shipbuilders, but you have all the people who provide services to those who are working. So all the way down to the waitresses at the local coffee shop.
Right. So those things, but things like a main shipbuilding program, like the Arleigh Burke destroyer, which is the mainstay of the U.S. Navy right at the moment, that's a 30-year program. All right. Or things like the B-21 stealth bomber. Now that's a shorter program. It's a smaller deliverable, but it's a more expensive program. And again, those things are things that are planned 20, 30 years out. They're the kind of things that that portion, a significant portion of the industry, are built around. And now you have a guy that just arbitrarily decides to cancel programs, or decides to do something else, or randomly changes course, and we've got a Congress that's letting him get away with it. And I use things like shipbuilding, and don't beat me up. Don't send me a hate mail about the goddamn Defense Department or the fact that we're spending too much money on weapons. I get that. I only use it as an example of the most obvious example, long-term example, in economic planning in our society. But there's many other things like the inputs to the national parks. That's not nearly as much money. It should be. I think we should spend $1 on the national park for every goddamn ship that we build, but that's just me. But things like that, or especially one of the largest costs in this country is healthcare. And you can't depend on a goddamn thing in the healthcare industry right now. You don't know tomorrow what this wacky worm brain lunatic that's running Health and Human Services is going to wake up tomorrow and decide to do. So these things not only lead to economic chaos, they dramatically increase the level of anxiety amongst individual citizens in society. The level of personal anxiety increases across the board, and that leads to increased mass shootings. That leads to increased medical costs. That leads to increase in suicides and gun violence and robbery and all of those underlying things. That level of anxiety increases the level of interpersonal conflict. It increases everything from road rage to suicide. And this is how societies destabilize and fall apart. When you look at things like the example that we all use is Nazi Germany, but it's because that example is so textbook. You literally look at a society that ate itself. People that were, German society was inherently conservative at the beginning of last century. Sure, absolutely. But they were civilized people, and they went from that to mass murder. How the hell did that happen? What happened exactly the way it's happening in the United States of America right now. This economic anxiety, it's not just economic anxiety, but it's societal anxiety that leads to hate and fear and distrust of the other, and leads ultimately to a lack of compassion and empathy. When you can shove babies into goddamn gas chambers and feel nothing, you look at that and you say, how could those people become monsters? But we're literally looking right now at deporting 4-year-old American citizens with terminal cancer to foreign countries. And the people that are doing that are not only it's not only that they do it without compassion, they're gleeful about it. And this is
that's the point. But that's the point. Is the cruelty is the point, because that allows them to feel powerful. There's no empathy over there. There's no. Empathy is considered a weakness. But the fact that, look, we have the power. And it's people who are damaged inside, who have no empathy for others, who have been feeling frustrated and desperate and put down and hurt. And they say, I'm going to get even with all those other people. And so when they shove the babies in the gas chamber, they're laughing gleefully because look how powerful I am.
Right. It's the people that have a lack of compassion. They also feel like they need to get revenge. And that you're seeing a huge component of that on the right now, because they feel like they're marginalized. Gay people got rights, trans people got rights, same-sex marriage, and these people have held this in the background of we're being wrong, we're being diminished, we're losing, and so now we're in power and we're going to get revenge.
Wait.
And they were never wrong.
Wait. This is a good one. There's some Republican congressman who says every LGBT activist is a terrorist, and I want you to acknowledge I am a terrorist now. According to this congressman, I'm a terrorist. I have never been a terrorist before. I am going to put that on my resume. All right?
Are you going to cite your sources?
Yeah, I got to find out. I'll find that article again.
Yeah,
but again, this is you have a third of this country that are mean, miserable little sons of bitches who all feel that they,
and those are their good points. Yeah.
And now it's their chance to exact revenge on all the rest of it. And then, and again, you see this translates. This isn't just hyperbole or flower of the language. This translates on the right into action, and you're seeing that in Texas, where we've moved to redistrict so that these people can remain in power in perpetuity, because they feel like other people showed up at the polls that they don't like and voted against them, and we're not going to let that happen anymore.
And Missouri.
It's our right.
Missouri is redistricting so they can gain one more red seat.
Right. It's our right to do this. It's our right to get even. You owe us. We had to put up, and I see this online all the time where people say, well, we had to live through 8 years of Obama.
Yeah.
Okay. you know, and what? And you were better off economically. But it's look at themselves. I say, so how were you worse off under Obama? Well, I wasn't, but he did all this stuff. See, that's what it is. It's other people got right. And these are people who see rights and civil rights and liberty and justice as zero-sum games. If others get more, they get less. Because, and you see this in society where these people, their self-worth is a zero-sum game. It's always in comparison to somebody else. Lyndon Johnson said this, 60 years ago. If you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the highest black man, you can pick his pocket at will. And I'm paraphrasing here. Don't quote me, but that's absolutely true. And I look out here in town, and you see these guys. The bigger they have to have the biggest truck. They have to have the biggest flag in the back of it. They got to have the shiniest chrome. They got to have the biggest gun because their entire self-worth is in comparison to everyone else. And so when they look at things like civil rights, they're looking at it in the same exact manner. I am only free if I have more rights than you. I can't be happy if we're all the same. And I literally live amongst this mindset down here. I live amongst a mindset where parents tell their children, don't get above your station. They don't want to do better than they did. They revel in their poverty and their lack of options because this is my pride. This is my heritage. They don't want their kids to do better than they do. You literally hear this. Don't get above your station. The preachers preach it from the pulpits down here. It's the most bizarre mindset that I've ever seen in my life. It's the most morally bankrupt, fragile masculinity mindset that I've ever seen. Because it only works if there's somebody else to oppress. But again, you look at how our country was founded, it's not hard to draw a line between that and where we are now. All right, your turn.
I have nothing to add to that. I mean, I could have written that rant myself.
Cool. All right. Well, let me put up some hummingbird pictures, and we're done. Thanks. See ya. No.
But let me offer a thought. And I don't know how to reach that particular mindset, but I think you have to appeal to their kindness. And there are people who they will be kind on a one-on-one level. Yep. And I think instead of vilifying them, and I know it's real easy because, when you deal with that level of stupidity, you really want to slap the shit out of them. I know I go through this, and it's like I'm at a science fiction convention, right? And like 99.99% of those people are wonderful. They have interesting things. Every so often, though, you get somebody who is just bankrupt in the social skills economy, and they come up to the table, and I've got all of the books. Here's the Bob Brown books, and here's the scripts, and here's the whatever, and books I've written, and brand new stuff, good stuff. And all they want to do is talk, and they talk, and because they see a captive audience, they don't see that you're selling books. And they don't see, it's the same thing with the store clerk or anybody who has a job to do. That's a captive audience, and they will chatter. They will chatter for an hour of your time until you fake pulling out your phone and say, wait a minute, I got to take this call, and you turn your back on them. And I have done that a couple times. And I don't want to be rude, but there's, the social skills economy is bankrupt across the entire country. But when you talk to people one-on-one, and you recognize where they're coming from, and you talk to that and say, look, I agree with you. There's reasons to be scared and desperate and frightened, but let's be pissed at the people who are responsible. But what about the billionaire who took $1 trillion out of the economy over the last 10 years? Let's be pissed at him because he's the reason the egg prices went up. And then they start to get it. They start to shift. See, rather than work on the head on with their whole right-wing propaganda machine, and then you can do something funny. Say, I turned off Fox News for a month as an experiment And I learned stuff that Fox News wasn't telling me. You could try that and let me know how that works out for you. You come at them from their side of the issue, acknowledging what their fear and their desperation is, and they open up their listening. But if you come at them that you're a liberal and you know better, they're not going to listen. They're going to shut you down. I have thought about starting. I've thought about starting a right-wing website to lure them away. It's like, but the amount of work, that would take. It's like, oh God, do I really want to get into? I'd rather write a new novel. You know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's exactly it. I'd rather go take pictures. And I saw someone upstream here had said that in the comments, Jim May, that'd be a great essay. It would, and I'm sure you've noticed, or I don't know if you have or not. I haven't written any new essays in 8 months. I stopped writing long form on the day that the election results were announced, for a number of reasons. First of all, for my own personal sanity, I needed to take a bit of a sabbatical from that sort of thing. I'm in a position now and I had a lot of things going on in my life and some other things going on, but also as the point of, to be honest with you, I could have just, honest to God, I was tempted to just type "fuck you" into the word processing machine for over and over again, like that scene in the movie where the guy's typing, red rum over and over again. Because the reason for it is that I and many other people have written millions of words for the last 20 years about what would happen if you didn't show up. And again, before every election, there's always something. In this case, there's a war in a foreign land that's going on, and a whole shitload of people on the left decided that was a reason enough to throw democracy away. And there's always a cause, there's always a thing, there's always something that's more important than what's happening, than the bigger issue. And this is where we are now. I literally have people who write me letters every day saying, "Well, why didn't you warn us?" And what do we do now? What do we do now? Well, now we live under it. That's what happened. We gave up the White House. We gave up Congress. And we gave up the Supreme Court. And it's not like you weren't warned over and over and over again. And yet a third of America doesn't vote, doesn't show up. And in this case, 6 million people who voted for Joe Biden just could not bring themselves to vote for Kamala Harris.
There are people who are socially inept, which is the politest way. And I knew a woman who she pretended she was a science fiction writer. She actually published a couple of Star Trek books. And when I said, you really have to get out there and vote, it is important that you vote. She says, "Oh, my family, we don't do that kind of thing." And it's like, okay, right. And a little later, I had done a very effective personal effectiveness course, and I invited her to come to a guest event, and she said, no, we don't do that kind of thing. And I realized this was a method of denial for her to hide out from life. We don't do that kind of thing.
Right,
and of course, she's no longer a friend of mine. I think that was the point at which I said, I don't have time for this, because I want people who are adventurous, who take chances, who are out there playing on the skinny branches. And even if you fall off once in a while, you climb back up the tree. It's like, and believe me, the number of failures I've had, I don't want to talk about. But you climb back up the tree, you get out on the skinny branches, you find out what's out there. And those are my best friends. Those people who take those chances, because we learn from each other. And I love those conversations. And it annoys the hell out of me when somebody says, "Oh, we don't do that kind of thing," because it's not just denial, it's resignation. I am just going to sit here and vegetate until I die.
Well, it's a hell of a privilege. You got to be pretty privileged in this society not to participate, because you think it's not going to affect you. Oh, well, no matter what Trump does, no matter how bad it gets, it won't affect me.
Right.
That's a hell of a selfish attitude. But you have to be pretty damn privileged to be that person. And I mean, even billionaires are like, whatever this guy does affects me. I got to do something. Now they may do the thing that makes it worse for me, but you got to be a hell of a white guy smack in the middle of the middle class with a good government job that you can't lose, to be that guy, to be the guy that says, whatever happens either way, I don't need to show up because it really doesn't affect me. And it's more than just that. It's more than it doesn't affect you. It's that you don't give enough of a shit about anybody else. You don't care that it affects them. It doesn't affect me. So that's the end of my give a shit. And so again, there's that, which I think is bad enough. And then there's also the other side where the disease that affects the active left, which is this cause, whatever the hell this cause that we're mad about right now. This is the most important thing in the world, and to hell with everything else. And so I'm not going to vote because this cause is more important. And then tomorrow it'll be a different cause. You know, and I see these guys when I was active military. I was in San Diego. We used to get these people that show up from the national. I won't name them, but the national conservation group. You know who they are. The people that think everybody else, that we all need to wear burlap and live in a cave and you know, and let the animals go back to whatever. And so they used to chase us around in the Navy in their 30-year-old oil leaking ship to wave signs and bitch at us about saving the fucking whales. Well, I don't know how to tell you guys this, but we're required by federal law to. I tell you, there were times, more than once this happened to me, where I had the bridge of a cruiser barreling through the water at 13 knots, which to civilians doesn't sound like a hell of a lot, but when it's 10,000 tons of cruiser moving through the water, that's a hell of a lot of mass. And we're taking fuel from a tanker, which is a 100,000-ton vessel next to us, tied together with lines pumping 200,000 gallons of diesel fuel back and forth. This is an incredibly dangerous evolution. I mean, incredibly dangerous. You can't imagine how dangerous this kind of thing is. And we're barreling through the water off in San Diego, off San Clemente Island, taking on fuel, and a whale surfaces ahead. At that
you
point,
don't have much choice. You can't do much.
Oh, you do. Actually, you do. And that's exactly the point here. The U.S., we sound emergency breakaway. It's assholes and elbows. Lines are retracted. Ships heel over, hard over, rudders hard over. Hell, there are sailors rolling across the goddamn deck. People twist ankles and break arms to avoid striking that whale. And every ship is surrounded by when they're in port, there's constant watch for any kind of fuel leaks, any kind of water contamination. What we can throw over the side is strictly regulated. Ships have plastic recyclers on board where plastic's melted down into pucks for return to port. I mean, you're on a 7-month wartime deployment. You come back and all the storage compartments on the ship are full of these plastic pucks because you don't throw a single non-biodegradable thing over the side. Meanwhile, we have a bunch of these goddamn people following us around in some 30-year-old ship that's leaking an oil slick behind it, protesting the environment. And the reason they do that is because if they didn't have that cause, there wouldn't be anybody. They'd just be regular people. They wouldn't feel important. And you can't reason with some of these people. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm probably a bigger environmentalist than 90% of the people watching. I'm a wildlife photographer. I don't want us dumping shit in the environment either. But for people, for a certain mindset, the cause becomes their identity. And this is part of the problem that we saw in the last election, where the cause became more important than handing our country over to fascism. And so now, when I mention this online, I will get 1,000 responses from very angry, very self-righteous people saying, well, you're asking us to compromise our principles. Buddy, I don't know how to tell you this, but life is compromised. I compromise my goddamn principles 5 times a fucking day. That's how it is. People who don't compromise their principles, they're all science fiction fans, man. There's that opening scene in Firefly. Remember that? The bank, the robbery, right? And Zoe leans down and puts a gun in the side of the guy's head who's trying to pull his gun out from under his thing. And she says to him, you know what the definition of a hero is? Someone who gets other people killed. And that's exactly what happened in the last election. We had a lot of heroes, and now people are dying. Innocent people are dying, including the very people that we threw our vote away for are measurably, an order of magnitude worse off. Sometimes, morals, morals are not, I am doubtful of anyone who considers morality to be an absolute. And there's a hell of a lot of folks on the right. There's a hell of a lot of churches that are sitting. There's a hell of a lot of asses sitting in pews, not a half a mile from me, who are moral absolutists. And there's no compromise with these people. And this is why abortion is illegal in this state. Because there is literally no compromise in any fashion. That morality is absolute. The world is a big, complicated place with billions of people in it, and the dynamics change from second to second. And you have to be rational enough and pragmatic enough to adapt to that.
Let me offer this thought. I do have some experience with cults and cult-like behavior and cult-like mentality. And basically, you can blame Fox News for this a lot, but not just Fox News. You can blame that the Republican Party started turning itself into a cult when they brought the evangelicals aboard during the Reagan administration.
Absolutely.
And Jerry Falwell, and they've created the Republican cult. And so the thing about a cult is that you have to have a sense of identity within the cult, and anyone who isn't in the cult is the enemy. And so it's like, I used to go to Comic-Con in San Diego, and there was always, every time, and there was also the Gay Rights Parade in West Hollywood, and there was also some other events. There'd be the three guys standing with their signs, Jesus loves you, or Jesus is the savior, or Jesus hates sin, God hates sin. And they weren't there to convince anybody, because everybody was there to have a good time with Comic-Con or the Gay Rights Parade or whatever other event was going on. No, they were there to be reviled so that they could have their cult identity affirmed.
Right. Confirmed. That's exactly right. And that's exactly
they needed to look at other people as unworthy or less than or whatever. And that's the thing about a cult. And the success of a cult is how many people you can enroll into hating other people. That Jim Jones, for example, is the greatest example. But Waco, Texas, and way back when I was a kid, there was the Krishna something in they had 9 members, and then there was the 30 people who drank the poisoned pudding. One of them was Nichelle Nichols' brother. It's like the Heaven's Gate. And all you need to do to start a cult is create. And we had it in the science fiction community. We had the pathetic pooches, whatever they called themselves, back in 2015. Remember? And they were a cult that had to hate the rest of the science fiction community. That's what the Republican Party has become. And I'm not smart enough yet. I haven't done the research. How do you break up a cult? Well, either all the members commit suicide, which would be fine with me if the Republican leaders did that, or you have to find a way to destroy the philosophy underlying the cult. And that is going to be the only way it's going to happen here in this country is the death of that demographic. The country is going to have to outgrow the MAGA cult. And so it's like 20 years from now, it's like, oh, yes, I supported it. I voted for him. I was like, yeah, it's like at the point at which they become doddering old senile idiots in the nursing home, at that point, they no longer have much voting power unless somebody loads them on the bus and drives them to the polls. But it is a cult-like mentality, and that is what we are dealing with. It is not a political movement. It is a cult.
Yeah.
I'm done talking about that.
Yeah, we were talking about Heaven's Gate there. I was actually in San Diego when that happened, and that was fascinating. I wrote about it. I wrote, I don't know, a couple 100,000 words about Heaven's Gate. The guy that founded that was a character named Martin Applewhite, and who actually had himself basically castrated. Went to Mexico and had some drug lord search and cut his balls off. And you got to be pretty committed. You got to be pretty committed for that. But the thing is that if you ever talk to Marty, he was a fucking loon. I mean, this guy was out. This guy was this is the thing, can you imagine sitting in the park and this creepy weirdo comes along walking funny, and he sits down to you and says, "Hey, listen, man, we're going to go down to Mexico, get ourselves castrated, and then we're going to get on a ship and go up and live with the common people, and we've got an extra seat. Are you interested?" And you say,
Yeah, sign me up. Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Hey, listen, if somebody's going to get their hands on my balls, I want a good time, and he's got to have a red hair.
Yeah, there better be a comment involved. But the thing about it is, as loony as that was, the guy found 33 people to go with him, and there are still active members of that cult available now that can't be deprogrammed. Don't be. They're mad they got left behind, and this is true. I live. Those of you who know me know that I live around the bay from Pensacola, and if you drive along the scenic boulevard, and I've taken David down this highway before a couple of times. There's a scenic highway that drives along the water frontage, the cliffs in front of Pensacola, and there's just a couple of odd looking houses down it that look like they were built by amateurs, because they were. They were built by the Moonies, the acolytes of the Sun Young.
I remember the Moonies, yes.
The People's Temple, and they're still owned by that cult, who still lives here in America. Of course, these were people that were their cult fell apart. The Bagwan there was found guilty. They tried to poison a bunch of people out in Oregon, and a lot of them were deported from the country, and the cult just kind of collapsed. But they still own a tremendous amount of property. There are still people that are believers in this, and these houses down here in Pensacola, 40 years later, are still owned by that church, and there are still people living in there who believe in it. And even though, and so those sorts of things. The reason I bring that up is because when you say, how do we deprogram what's happening in our country right now, the answer to that is not an easy answer. It's not going to be an answer. It will require either the kind of violence that eliminated this similar cult of fascism in Europe 80 years ago, or it will require the death of the demigod who started this, the guy that people look at as the deity. I mean, literally, too. Some of these people, I'm literally looking at this, and some of the more extreme members of the MAGA cult who are scrolling past on one of my screens as I'm looking at this right now, are people who literally believe that Trump is the second coming of their prophet. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around that, but I also have a hard time wrapping my head around people who followed Martin Applewhite. And so obviously these people need something. They need something in their lives, or some kind of gap or hole in their mentality and their framework and their ideology that this guy fills. And this is, again, Trump didn't show up in a vacuum. He wasn't a guy just like Hitler or Mussolini or Pol Pot. These people didn't just show up out of nowhere like the mule in the Foundation story and start converting people. They arrived at a point in time that was prepared for them. Now, whether deliberately or by circumstance. In our case, our country has always had this odd conservative bent because the people who came here from Europe a couple hundred years ago were religious nuts. Now we have to celebrate
the Puritans.
Right, we have to celebrate these people.
Australia got lucky. Australia got lucky. Australia got lucky. They got
the criminals.
Australia got lucky. They got the convicts. We got the Puritans.
Right. That's why they're so much more fun than we are and better looking. But the thing is that we celebrate these people, but they were religious. They were religious extremists. They didn't come here looking for religious freedom. They got booted out of the Netherlands and booted out of England because they were religious extremists who wouldn't tolerate anybody else. And they came over here and imposed their particular religious viewpoint on everyone else. And you wound up with horrors like the Salem witch trials as a response to that. And so there's still that strong bent within American society of I mean, I grew up in Western Michigan amongst Dutch Protestants who are the most dour, unhappy people who ever lived. And don't write me emails. You know it's true. And now I live down here in the evangelical South, who are they're happy people, but they're not happy people, but they're not dour. But they're happy in their religious extremism. But this theme has run through American history throughout, and so when Trump arrived, it was after preparation of the battle space by, I don't want to keep blaming Fox News, but Fox News was a large part of it. And Fox News is, again, a symptom. They're not a cause of it. My dad, who is probably one of the most generous, decent human beings I've ever known, he literally would give you the shirt off his back, and he helped people right and left. But he grew up Republican in the 1930s and 40s, the Second World War. And in those days, liberals were literally communists. His father had owned a trucking company. You were literally led by communists, but this is prior to the Second World War. And so in my dad's mind, even though 40 years had passed, it was still the same thing. Liberals were commies who we fought in the Second World War, or we fought in the Cold War, who he'd been told for 40 years were the enemy. And Republicans were the good, solid Americans. And my father could not see the switch that had happened in the 1960s. And for him, when Fox News came along, they told him everything that he wanted to hear. And again, my father was a kind, decent man. I miss him terribly. He's been gone for 15 years, and I miss him terribly. But Fox News catered to his demographic, people that felt like the world had changed, especially beginning in the 1960s, where cultural had changed with Alvin Toffler, and that he felt like an alien within his own society. And Fox News was the first, they weren't the only one, but they were the first to tell him that that was okay, that he was right, and that he was a true American, and it was all these other people with these weird ideas and that were in the wrong. And of course, this is always, that conservative bent has always been a large part of the American mindset. And so I would see my father go further and further and further to the right through the Obama years, because he just could not process how much the world had changed. And one of the brilliant things about Rupert Murdoch is the ability to see that and capitalize on it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not endorsing. What I'm saying, though, is that if you're a guy that wants to make a lot of billions of dollars, well, that's the McDonald's of the news industry. It is cheap, fast. It gives you the satisfaction that you want, and people are willing to give you a lot of money for it. And it was a brilliant marketing strategy. And like a lot of those kinds of things, like junk bonds or .com investments, the people that are making the money from that in the moment don't care about the long-term effects, because they figure they'll be dead before it happens. And my father said that to me more than once. Well, even if I'm wrong about things like global warming, I'll be dead. Well, yeah, but your goddamn grandchildren won't be. And those were the kind of things that he and I used to fight about. But it's a mindset that I see amongst Americans that feel like they've been wrong, like the world has changed, that the United States has changed. And it was funny. I was watching John Wayne's perennial Republican movie, which is McClintock, and which he made. I mean, he literally put the people he hated in that movie. The hateful liberal governor is Cuthbert.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I hated that movie. I'll tell you why I hated that movie. First of all, it wasn't directed by John Ford. John Ford understood that every time had John Wayne in a movie, John Wayne was always a damaged character that you respected, but you understood he was damaged. But in that movie, there's a scene at the top of a big wet mudslide where John Wayne says, somebody ought to punch you. Somebody will punch you, but I won't. Oh, the hell I won't. And then he turns around and punches him. Because it was not a John Wayne thing. It was a I'm just going to get revenge because you deserve it and I don't like you. And it's not the John Wayne character that John Ford and John Wayne together had built. So.
Well, and that's exactly it. And the movie's very much that. The movie's very much the white male straight Republican movie. John Wayne disciplines his wayward ex-wife Katharine Hepburn by bending her over his knee in the middle of town and beating her with a coal shovel. And then after that, she's the dutiful wife who comes back to him and knows her place, right? And he literally hands his future son-in-law the coal shovel to beat his daughter with to get her off on the right foot. And he's also the great white father. The Native Americans can't speak for themselves. John Wayne speaks for them, right? But my point of that movie is that halfway through the movie, you actually see John Wayne, Marion Wayne, the Republican conservative from California, where the world has changed. And when his son-in-law asks him, "Why do these people hate you?" And he says, "Well, they call me a reactionary. I don't even know what that means, and they call me a reactionary, I guess." And that is the authentic human being underneath that shining through. It's why I brought up the example, because that's exactly it. That's exactly that movie is a reactionary movie to the increasing liberalism of the 1960s. When the movie was made, the early 19s, I think that movie was made in 1972, I think. And that is the reaction of those staid, conservative, allegedly straight white people, men in particular, who felt like the world had changed around them. Suddenly, feminism was happening, civil rights were happening. All these people that they had been superior to were suddenly their equals in society. And that movie is it's the perennial John Wayne reaction to that situation. And the reason I bring it up, though, is because it's an illustration of what's happening in our world right now, where, again, and we've come full circle and the hour's about up, but where you have a very significant fraction of America that is John Wayne, the actor, who was not a cowboy. That entire persona was that swaggering cowboy, ultra macho man who's never wrong. That was all an illusion. Wayne wasn't that guy. He wasn't that tough guy. He was sick. And Christ Almighty, by the time that he made the shooters, he was so goddamn ill he could barely walk.
But let me share this story with you. John Wayne was one of the actors who not only didn't enlist in World War II, he didn't even entertain the troops. He stayed home and made more movies. And so when he finally did go out to meet the troops, he got booed.
Oh, yeah.
They knew.
And then he did nothing but spend the next 40 years making movies about how he was a hero in the war. Absolutely. And so, again, that entire mindset, that movie is just, if you haven't seen McClintock, it's hard to find. It was held up by Wayne's estate for a number of years. You can find it here and there. It's not on streaming, but you can find it on a disc here and there. It's a great movie. When you see it, it's a horrible, misogynistic, racist movie.
Let me see if I can find it. So yeah.
The thing about it is that it is an excellent illustration of what's happening. It's a very entertaining movie. It's very John Wayne. It's a lot. I mean, if you turn your brain off and just watch them whack each other and slide downhill in the mud fight, and of course, Katharine Hepburn is, or not Katharine Hepburn.
There's $15 for a Blu-ray.
But if you watch that Hepburn, it's I forget her name, Maureen O'Hara. And so if you watch the movie, it's a very entertaining movie from a John Wayne standpoint. But my point of it is that it's an illustration of what's happening in America right at the moment. It's this reactionary mindset to the fact that the world is changing. The conservative mindset. Don't be wrong. There's many good things about conservatism in the classic form that provides that stability in society, that maintains a sense of the past, those sorts of things. Don't be wrong, and that's not what we're looking at with conservatism right now. But there has to be a balance between that and the liberal ideas of going forward and creating a better world, a different world. And so you see me, if those of you who follow me online have seen me use the word reactionary, which is an older word that people really haven't used since the 70s. But that word very much describes the Trump administration, because there's no new ideas in the Trump administration. Every single bit of the Trump administration is a reaction to what they see is the overwhelming liberalism of the last 20 years of LGBTQ people getting rights, of gay marriage, of increasing civil rights, of things like affirmative action, a DEI. The words that they use are indicative of that ideology, that reactionary ideology of, oh my God, the world's changing. It's changing in the wrong way. It's changing too fast. And we must put things back the way they were. And that's Trump. Trump is not, there's no new ideas whatsoever. They're all old ideas. And when you look at some of the things that Stephen Miller proposes, well, they're ideas from the 1930s in Germany and Italy. And none of this stuff is new. It's all the same word. In fact, it's the same words. It's identical words. America for Americans, Germany for Germans, purity. I mean, all of these things are the traditional values, family. I mean, they're the same words. They're exactly the same words. And so, anyway, we're there. We're 5 minutes over time. This is usually where Bob's face starts to make like weird expressions, but he doesn't say anything.
I wasn't gonna tell them. Every time I say, "Hey, should I tell these guys that they're 27 minutes over?" No, they love you. They have deep appreciation for you.
This is what David and I are together in the same room. This is literally what we do. We sit around, drink coffee,
we sit around, we drink coffee, and we rant about people we don't like because they're idiots. So it's like there are people I don't like, but they're brilliant, and there are people who if I dislike someone, it's because they are terminal idiots, that they are going out of their way to be stupid, and it's like.
Right.
And it's just walking away from them no longer works. You have to be engaged. You have to be involved. You have to fight back the idiocy. Otherwise, we end up with the idiots in charge. And I just can't do it anymore.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been heading here for a while. We keep, every time you don't show up, you let the world you let entropy increase. And that's exactly where we're at. We have disengaged from active participation in our own government for years. Only 40%. A good turnout is 50% of the country of eligible voters shows up, and even in highly contested elections, you're lucky if you break 60%. And people don't give enough of a shit about the future to show up now. And again, we also have a real lack of a grasp of the consequences. When you say, look, you think that whatever the president does, first of all, I hope now that everybody understands that this illusion of checks and balances is exactly that. It was a gentleman's agreement that presidents wouldn't violate those checks and balances. Well, I hope you can see that that's all bullshit. All right. So there's that. But the other thing that people forgot, and the reason we're in this situation, is we have a court and a Congress that allow that. And we have a Congress that allows that because people didn't show up in the midterms or in the unsexy non-general elections to vote for representatives and senators that are the ones that are the check on presidential power. And we're in the situation that we're in because we let this asshole into office the first time, and thereby let him choose the court. And so even if you didn't care for what the alternative was, there are long-term consequences of your apathy. And so it's a much bigger picture than some war in the Middle East, than one candidate or the other, or just this election. It's the last 20 elections. It's political ideology that is unrestrained in our own country now because we're the ones that took the restraints off. And I hope to hell that the burn it all down crowd can see that. And I'm not sure that they do yet. The problem with apocalyptic mindsets is once you figure out that apocalypses aren't any fun, it's too goddamn late. I see a hell of a lot of people in this country, increasingly on the right and the left, who keep talking about civil war. Well, I've been in the middle of a couple of civil wars, and I'm going to tell you, you're not going to enjoy it. And it's not going to go the way that you think. Everybody who starts a civil war thinks it'll be over in 10 days. They're going to win, and nobody that they love will be harmed by it. And when it's over, all the people they hate will be dead, and they'll have everything their way. Well, guess what?
That's Gone with the Wind. 4 hours of Gone with the Wind. 4 hours of Gone with the Wind is how the South was ruined by the Civil War. And it starts out with all those young men, hey, Civil War will be over in 10 days and we're going to win, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was 4 years. And the South was devastated. But the North also paid an enormous price, too. The Civil War was not good for it. You don't win wars, you survive them.
That's exactly it. And I'll tell you, as somebody who's been in more than one war, that's a damn true statement, David. I'll say it again, since David and I always talk about movies. If you haven't seen it, there's a Tom Berenger movie from about 20 years ago called Rough Riders, and it's a more or less accurate. It's slightly fictionalized. Not everything about it is accurate, but it's a lot of great actors, and it's about the Spanish-American War, and it's about the Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders who went to Cuba and Roosevelt's famous charge up San Juan Hill. What's interesting about that movie is that it begins with the call for volunteers, the U.S. Volunteer Cavalry. And the difference between those, the Berenger's character of Teddy Roosevelt and the elite of New York and Boston and Baltimore and the rich families who sent their sons who thought it would be this grand adventure. And those in the West, the Bucky O'Neill guys, those kind of people who had a much better idea of what they were getting into, who all signed up and all thought that they were going to fight this grand war and teach the Spanish a lesson and free Cuba. And that progression, it's a 2-part miniseries. It was made for television that goes from that mindset to the Battle of San Juan Hill in Cuba. And the journey through that story is very accurate, even if there's some liberties taken with the story and the characters. And so it's well worth your time to look at that mindset. And you see that amongst Americans nowadays who think that a civil conflict and the chance to kill all the people in America that they hate is going to be some grand, idyllic adventure of honor and duty and waving flags and trumpet music and swooning women. And
there's let me give you one. There's a movie called The Boys at Company C, and it and basically the Boys in Company C have to play a baseball game against another company, and they're told your job is to lose so this other guys look good. And about halfway through the game, they say, "Oh hell, let's play to win," even though they've been ordered to lose. And they play to win, and they win the game, and they get sent to Vietnam as their punishment. But that movie is about this American need to win no matter what, even when it is to your best benefit to let the other guy look good. It's all about how we got into Vietnam. We got into Vietnam because nobody wanted to admit we couldn't win that war. And John F. Kennedy understood we cannot win that war. He was looking at ways to get out. LBJ believed the CIA, says, oh yeah, we can win the war. LBJ got suckered by the CIA.
Yeah. Well, like I said, as somebody who was part of the planning process on the way to Iraq, I can tell you that mindset is become more prevalent and not less. And the thing about things like Iraq was we won the war. I was there. I was part of the invasion force, and we did the job that we were ordered to do, and we won the war in 28 days. It was the peace that we lost. There was no plan for it. And it was funny because it was the exact opposite. They sent us to Iraq thinking we wouldn't win, so they had no plan for if we did. And, and 28 days later, we were in Baghdad, and the war was over. We sent a bulk of the troops home, but there was no plan for the occupation. There was this mindset that democracy would spawn from the ashes and that everybody be happy and we'd all go to home. Again, it's the same mindset that I just described in Rough Riders of war as this glorious spectacle of this thing where we send the rich scions of certain families, not the Trump family, but to earn their honor and then go on to be senators and presidents and that kind of thing. And that mind still is still very much alive nowadays. And you see it with Trump, who thinks that he can just send the National Guard in to crush homelessness. And one of the things that you haven't seen, now I see him this morning. He's literally on True Social this morning, bragging about how he sent the army into Washington, D.C., and there hasn't been a murder in a week. And, he's made the city safe and beautiful again, blah, 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 blah. And not a single reporter in that room said to him, Mr. President, what happened to the homeless people? Where'd they go? I mean, there were thousands of homeless people on the streets of Washington, D.C. Trump says they're all gone. What do we do with them? Where are they? What happened to them? Not a single member of the press has asked that question. What happened to them?
The press is...
We're going to send the troops into New York and Chicago next, and they're going to clean up the homeless problem there. That's thousands of more homeless people.
There's a TV miniseries that's about 30 years old called Holocaust. And and with Michael Moriarty and I forget who else. And in one of the scenes, it says, what happened to the Jews? Oh, they left, right? But and the lady is talking, we got this wonderful piano. I think it used to belong to a Jewish family. Well, what happened to them? I don't know. They moved away.
They left.
Yeah, they left.
Yeah. Man, that's perfect, man. I forgot about that. Damn, now I have to watch that again. Anyway, I guess time's up. And I don't know about you guys, but I drank a lot of coffee this morning. So
yeah, we have a picnic to go to this afternoon, and so we're going to go to the.
With the point.
Yeah. What?
Oh, good. Jim, you've made the point endlessly and well that we're in this mess because of people too stupid to vote, too lazy to vote, or whatever.
Or people who voted stupidly.
Yeah. I happened to get an opportunity to sit down with a guy, Air Force major, who has decided to run for Congress. I didn't agree with everything he said, and he didn't agree with everything I said. Therefore, we are both sane. But he said something I really loved. He sent me a note that said, "Where if you get 2 or 3 people together, I'll come talk to them. I'll be there." And so I sent him back a note that said, "Okay, I'm going to set up a precinct get together, basically where I put food in my backyard, invite all the people in my precinct, and he's going to come chat with them, circle the room." I will just say to each and every person who wants to see a change, that's the level of involvement I think you're going to find you need, because you can't leave the candidates to do it all on their own.
No, it requires ground game. This is why Obama won both elections, because he understood he needed a ground game, and they had one of the best ground games ever on both those elections. So much so that what's his name the second time around, the guy with all the beautiful hair, they were they were something, whatever. They were astonished at the turnout because they did not understand that Obama's ground game was so well organized. So
that is true.
Well,
That is true. The last election I won, the first house I knocked on the doorbell was my opposition. And then I circled in a spiral away from his house. When he started knocking on doors, he gave up because he said, Bob, everywhere I went, you'd already been. That's what we got to be. That's what we got to do. Well, anyway, guys, thank you. And I won. Thank you guys for coming. It is good. We have to keep working if we want to save our country. And
let me give you this as a parting note. Somebody posed, "Oh, I worry about it. We're all doomed." And I said, "Look, I don't want you to be a whiny victim. I want you to be angry, an angry rabble rouser, because that's what the founding fathers of this country were. They said, we're not going to put up with this shit any longer. This is the attitude that we need for the next as many years as it takes. We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. That's the attitude we need."
Right. If you're not mad, you're not paying attention.
That's not funny, but that's true.
It's true.
Well, it is. The bottom line is that, there were a hell of a lot of people on the left for the last 15 years in my various social media forums who said to me, burn it all down. Well, I have a problem with arsonists. People die in a fire, but you got your wish. It burned our goddamn government down. It's not as bad as it could be, but it could be that bad. And that's the thing. If you have to hit rock bottom to realize the moral bankruptcy of your philosophy, you're not a good person. You should be able to look at the world as rational, pragmatic adults right now and see that attitude of burn it all down is the wrong attitude.
Doesn't work.
Our founding fathers, for all their flaws, and they had plenty, don't get me wrong, but they knew that. Now they built a mechanism for change into the fabric of our society so that we could change things as we went along. They did not intend for the Constitution of the United States government or U.S. society to remain static. And they knew that they weren't perfect, and they knew that the future would be different from the world that they had created. And so now we find ourselves torn between those folks who use words like, I'm a constitutional originalist. No, you're not. You just don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right.
You're a reactionary who pines for the old days and the future. And that step into the future has always been difficult and dangerous. And it's no different now. But you have to take it. And this is where we find ourselves. And so how do you create that future? 1,000 different ways. You do it the way Bob does it. You do it the way David does it. You do it the way I do it. You do it whatever works for you. Not everyone can stand in a corner with a sign. Not everyone can pick up a weapon. Not everyone can speak out. Not every, all of us resist in our own ways, but it has to be more than resistance. And in America, the fundamental component of change is democracy. Showing the hell up and voting. And if you don't have the wherewithal to do that simple task, then I would suggest to you that you don't have what it takes to change the future. Okay? And so you need to be honest with yourself and do what it takes to at least do that bare minimum. And that's where we find ourselves at the moment. And then now I'm done because I have reached full bladder capacity and I need to sign the hell off.
Yeah.
So
we're a vote by mail state, and you don't even need a stamp. So vote. Hey, and I will report back to you on how that goes. Does he really want to show up? Do the people show up? That's going to matter. So you guys, thank you. Jim, be well. David, give that fantastic little dog a scritch for me. And I will see you at RadCon.
All right.
And
all right, get Jim there too. Get Jim there, and we'll have a rant, a live action rant.
All right.
Oh God, yeah, it will be epic. And of course, anything with the two of you together is epic. And I'm going to say bye.
All right.